Everything was going normal until the surgeon suddenly jumped back, because in that moment, something inside her body exploded.
Oh my God, back up!
And what splashed out made everyone in that room panic. And that was only the beginning.
The sun came up early in Lagos. It always did. Loud and unforgiving, pushing through thin curtains, hitting iron rooftops until the whole neighborhood smelled like warm dust and yesterday's cooking. Amara was already awake. She had been awake for a while, lying on her narrow mattress, staring at the ceiling. Not because she had somewhere important to be, but because sleep had stopped being kind to her a long time ago. She sat up slowly, reached for her phone out of habit, and made the mistake she made every morning. She opened Instagram. There they were. Beautiful women with smooth skin and full figures, standing in bright apartments, laughing at nothing, holding drinks they probably never finished. Comments underneath read, "Stunning, goals, perfection." Amara put the phone face down on the mattress. She stood up and walked to the corner of her room where a small mirror hung on a nail. One edge of it was cracked, had been for 2 years. She had never replaced it because there was always something more urgent to spend money on. She looked at herself for a long moment. She was not an ugly woman. Anyone else would have seen that. But Amara did not see what anyone else would see. She saw the parts that did not match the women on her phone, the hips that were not wide enough, the arms that felt too ordinary, the face that no one ever called beautiful out loud. At least, not the way they said it to other women, effortlessly, like a fact. She turned away from the mirror and got dressed for work. The fabric shop where Amara worked was owned by a round, impatient man named Mr. Dele. It sat between a phone repair stall and the woman who sold fried plantain from a blackened pan. The shop was always busy, and Amara was always tired. Her job was simple. Fold, arrange, help customers find what they wanted, smile even when her feet hurt. Smile even when Mr. Dele spoke to her like she was slow. Smile even when polished, confident women walked in and Mr. Dele transformed into warmth itself. That was the part that stung most quietly. It was not one big humiliation. It was 100 small ones stacked on top of each other like stones on a chest. A customer who looked past her and asked the new girl, who had been working there 3 days, for help instead. A man on the bus who offered his seat to the woman beside Amara, not to her. A job interview she had prepared for with everything she had, where the panel smiled at her resume and then never called back. Small things, invisible things, but they added up and they whispered the same message every time. You are not the kind of woman people choose. It was on a Tuesday evening that Marcus happened. Her best friend Chloe had dragged Amara to a gathering, one of those parties held in a nice compound on the island where someone always knew someone who knew someone important. Chloe loved these places. Amara felt like an imposter in all of them. But she went. She wore her best dress, the burgundy one she kept for occasions. She did her hair carefully. She stood in the corner with a drink she barely touched and told herself this time would be different. She had noticed Marcus the moment she arrived. He was the kind of man who did not need to announce himself. People just turned toward him naturally, like plants toward light. He was tall, well-dressed, easy with his laughter. Amara had seen him twice before at similar events and had never had the courage to speak to him. That night, she was going to try. She moved closer, not too fast. She rehearsed the words in her head. She was
3 steps away when she heard his voice shift, lower, amused, talking to 2 men beside him.
You see the way some of these girls carry themselves? He said, swallowing his glass, like they belong here. No shape, no hips, nothing to offer, but fully convinced they deserve a seat at the table. His friends laughed. Amara stopped walking. She stood completely still for 1 long second. Then she turned around, set her drink down on the nearest surface, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub. She did not cry immediately. She just sat there, breathing, feeling the words settle into her like something heavy dropped into still water. No shape, no hips, nothing to offer. He had not been talking about her specifically. He did not even know her name. But it did not matter. It felt like he had read something written on the inside of her chest and said it out loud for everyone to hear. She told Chloe everything on the walk home. Chloe listened with her whole body, eyes wide, head shaking, arm linked through Amara's. That man does not deserve your tears. You are beautiful inside, my friend. But then, after a few quiet steps, Chloe spoke again, her voice softer, more careful. Can I tell you something, though? Something that helped me. Amara looked at her. There is a place, Chloe said slowly. A clinic. Private, small, very discreet, that specializes in BBL surgeries. The doctor there, he is not cheap, but the price is manageable. And the man is a professional and very good at it. The girls who go there come out looking completely different. Their bodies change, and suddenly doors open for them. Men notice them. Opportunities come. Amara was quiet. I am not saying anything is wrong with your body, Chloe added quickly. But look at you. The way your back is flat. Serious men will never look at you twice. I am just saying you deserve to feel confident. You deserve to walk into a room and make the men not stop stealing glances at you.
She took out her phone and showed Amara photos of young women before and after. The difference was striking. It is not as expensive as you think. I know someone who went there. She is now living a better life. The doctor is good, and many girls from around here have done it quietly. You deserve to feel confident, Amara. You deserve to be seen. The words were warm. They were kind. They were exactly what Amara had been waiting her whole life to hear. She did not say yes that night, but she did not say no either. And in the days that followed, she found herself returning to those words again and again, turning them over, holding them up to the light, trying to see if they were a gift or something else entirely. She was too tired to tell the difference. The night before the surgery, Amara lay on her mattress and stared at the ceiling again. She had saved for 6 weeks. She skipped meals to put money aside. She had asked Chloe the same questions over and over. Is it safe? Is he qualified? Has anything ever gone wrong? And Chloe had smooth answers for everything. The clinic had no big sign or website, but Chloe said that made it safer from nosy people. The price was low because it was a small private place. Amara reached down and placed her hand flat on her stomach, then her hip, then her arm. She breathed in slowly. This is the last night, she told herself. Tomorrow, this shapeless version of Amara shall be no more. She smiled and closed her eyes. Outside, Lagos continued its noise. Generators humming, a child laughing somewhere, a radio playing a song she did not know. Life moving forward, indifferent and unstoppable. She lay there until she finally fell asleep. They left before sunrise. Amara had barely slept. She sat in the front seat of Chloe's cousin's car with her bag on her lap and her hands folded tight, watching Lagos wake up outside the window. Hawkers setting up their tables, A woman sweeping dust from her doorstep into the street. A man balancing a tray of bread on his head, moving fast, going somewhere. Everyone moving, everyone with a purpose. Amara told herself she had a purpose too. The clinic was not where she had imagined it would be. She had pictured something quiet, maybe on a calm side street with a small sign and clean walls. Instead, Chloe's cousin parked behind a busy market, the kind that smelled of raw fish, engine oil, and overripe fruit all at once. They walked through a narrow gap between two stalls selling plastic buckets, past a generator that coughed black smoke, and stopped in front of a pale blue gate. There was no sign on it, nothing that said what it was. Chloe knocked twice. A latch clicked. The gate opened. Inside, it was different. Cleaner. White walls, tiled floor. A reception desk with a young woman sitting behind it who looked up and nodded without smiling. The air smelled of disinfectant, sharp and chemical, too strong, like something being hidden rather than something being cleaned. Amara stood still just inside the door. Something was wrong. She did not know exactly what. She could not point to one thing and name it. It was more like a feeling. The way the nurses moved through the hallway without speaking, the way the equipment in the side room looked older than it should, scratched and dull in places where new machines would shine. She turned to Chloe. "This is the place?" "This is it," Chloe said, already signing something at the desk. They took Amara into a small preparation room and handed her a gown. A nurse helped her lie down on a narrow bed and began attaching monitors to her fingers and chest. The nurse did not make eye contact once. The doctor came in shortly after. He was a thin man with round glasses and fast hands. He talked quickly about the procedure, the recovery, what to expect, but his words moved so fast that Amara could not hold on to any of them. She kept trying to ask questions, and he kept answering before she had finished asking, like he was checking boxes rather than talking to a person. "Is this your first time doing this procedure?" she asked. "Many times," he said, writing something on his clipboard. "How many times?" He smiled, thin and brief. "Relax, you are in good hands." He walked out. Amara stared at the ceiling. Her heart was beating too fast. She could feel it in her throat. She sat up. "Chloe," she said quietly, "I want to go." Chloe was beside her, hand on her shoulder, voice low and soft. "Amara, look at me." Amara looked at her. "You have come this far. You saved for 6 weeks. You did not sleep last night. You came all the way here." Chloe squeezed her shoulder gently. "You deserve this. You know you deserve this." And there it was again, that word, deserve. Marcus's voice came into her head without being invited. No shape, no presentation, nothing to offer. Amara lay back down. She stared at the ceiling and breathed slowly and told her legs to stop shaking. The anesthesia was cold going in. It moved up her arm like water rising, slow and heavy. The ceiling lights above her were too bright at first, then softer, then far away. She could hear voices, the doctor, a nurse, the sound of something metal being placed on a tray. Her thoughts came slower, quieter. She thought of her mother. She thought of the cracked mirror in her room. She thought of the burgundy dress she had worn to the party where Marcus had laughed, and she had stood 3 steps away, not close enough to matter. Her eyes were getting heavy. The last thing she saw, through the small rectangle of glass in the door, was Chloe's face. Chloe was watching through the glass, and she was smiling, soft and encouraging, like everything was fine. Amara's eyes closed. She did not know how long she had been under when the world broke open. It started with a sound, a sharp, urgent beeping, not the steady kind, but the kind that accelerates, the kind that means something is not right. Then voices rising fast, the doctor saying something in a clipped, tight tone, a nurse responding, another voice louder, then a shout. Amara was trapped between sleep and waking. She could not move or speak, but she felt everything. Her body felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. Deep pressure built in her hips and lower back, like something swelling and pushing from inside. Then, a sudden, violent pop. Warm, thick liquid spread across the table. The smell hit hard, chemical, synthetic, like industrial glue or paint thinner. Nothing that should ever be inside a human body. A nurse made a sound that was almost a scream, cut short. "It's yellow," a nurse shouted, voice breaking. "Thick like oil. This is not fat. What did we inject?" "What is that?" someone said, a man's voice, shaking. The smell hit the room like a wave. Not blood, not anything biological. It was chemical, sharp and synthetic, the way certain industrial products smell when their containers are opened. A smell that had no place near a human body. "Stop the procedure." The doctor's voice had changed completely. The fast, clipped confidence was gone. He sounded afraid. "Stop. Get me suction. Now. Now." More alarms joined the first one. The beeping became a wall of sound. Amara could not open her eyes, but she felt everything shifting around her, hands moving quickly, something being pressed, the table tilting slightly. Through her half-darkness, she caught fragments. A yellow color, strange and thick, somewhere below her field of vision. A nurse turning away, the doctor leaning close, saying something she could not understand. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. She tried to move her hand. It was too heavy. Alarm screamed, hands pressed hard on her body. The table shook. Amara felt burning pain, like fire spreading under her skin. In her half-conscious mind, she screamed silently, "I should have run. This was a mistake. God, please." The sounds began to blur and stretch. The alarms grew distant. The voices became a low hum. And then nothing. She woke up to white. White ceiling, white walls. A slow mechanical beeping that was steady this time. Calm, like a patient heartbeat. There were tubes, one in her arm, something attached to her finger, a thin blanket to her legs. The air was cool and smelled like a real hospital, antiseptic and plain, without that sharp chemical undertone from before. She blinked several times. A nurse she had never seen before appeared at her side. "You are awake," the nurse said quietly. "Take it slow. Do not try to sit up." Amara's mouth was dry. Her body felt like it had been emptied and refilled with something heavier than before. She turned her head slowly and looked around the room. She was alone. No Chloe, no doctor with round glasses, no blue gate or pale walls or floor that smelled of something being hidden. She was somewhere else entirely. A different door opened. A doctor walked in, older, calm-faced, wearing the kind of expression that people learn to wear when they have to deliver news that cannot be undone. He was carrying a folder. He stopped at the foot of her bed before he spoke, which told Amara this was not going to be a short conversation. The doctor's name was Dr. Fashola. He pulled a chair close to her bedside and sat down before he spoke, which told Amara this was not going to be a short conversation. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Tell me what happened," she said. He nodded slowly, like he had expected that answer. He opened the folder on his lap. What he told her next, he told her carefully and clearly, the way a person speaks when they want to make sure every word lands correctly. The clinic, he explained, had not been using real fat for the procedure. A proper BBL surgery takes fat from a patient's own body, removes it from one area and transfers it carefully to another. It is delicate work. It requires real equipment and real skill. The clinic had been doing none of that. Instead, they were injecting a synthetic polymer compound, a thick industrial filler used in manufacturing, not medicine. It was cheap, it was easy to obtain, and it allowed them to charge patients a fraction of the real cost while keeping the rest for themselves. When your body rejected it, Dr. Fashola said quietly, the pocket of filler ruptured under pressure. That is what caused the leaking. That is what you saw, what everyone in that room saw. Amara stared at him. "You are alive because the rupture happened on the table," he said. If it had happened at home 3 days later, he stopped. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. "The authorities have been contacted. The clinic is already closed. We are working to identify all the women who were treated there." The room was very quiet. Amara looked down at her hands on the blanket. They looked the same as they always had. Ordinary, familiar. "Where is Chloe?" she asked. The pause that followed that question was the kind that tells you everything before a single word is spoken. The nurse near the door looked at the floor. Dr. Fashola closed his folder. "Your friend," he said carefully, "has not been here since you were admitted." He told her the rest of it simply and without decoration, because there was no kind way to decorate it. Chloe had a financial arrangement with the clinic. For every woman she referred, she received a payment. She had sent girls there before, at least 6, possibly more. She had known the clinic was not fully licensed. She had known the materials they used were not standard. She had smiled and reassured and held hands and collected her money. She had known. Amara did not scream. She did not throw anything or raise her voice. She just turned her head slowly toward the window and looked outside, at the ordinary sky, the tops of buildings, a bird crossing from one rooftop to another. She thought about the burgundy dress. She thought about all the questions she had asked and all the smooth answers Chloe had given. She thought about the glass door and the smile, that warm, encouraging smile, while Amara was being wheeled into a room where something terrible was waiting for her. "You deserve this," Chloe had said. Amara's eyes filled with tears. She did not let them fall. She just breathed, slowly and evenly, until the feeling settled somewhere deep inside her, where she could carry it without breaking. She spent 11 days in that hospital. On the 4th day, a journalist sent a message through the hospital administration, carefully worded, respectful, asking if Amara would be willing to share her story. She did not answer for 2 days. On the 6th day, she said yes. The article went out on a Thursday morning. By Thursday evening, Amara's name was everywhere. The story spread fast and far. Other women came forward, 3 of them patients of the same clinic, 2 more who had heard of similar places. Chloe's name appeared in follow-up reports, connected directly to the referral scheme. The backlash was swift and public, and from what Amara could see on her phone screen, completely deserved. The illegal clinic was exposed down to its foundations. The doctor with the round glasses and the fast hands was facing criminal charges. Investigators were still counting the number of women who had passed through that pale blue gate. On the 8th day, a message arrived from Marcos. Amara opened it. His words were suddenly kind. He said he had seen her story and wanted to talk. He called her brave. He said maybe they should finally have a real conversation. She read it once, then she moved the message to the archived folder and put her phone down. She felt almost nothing. That emptiness brought its own kind of peace. She no longer needed his approval. In the quiet hours of recovery, something shifted in Amara that she could not fully explain. It did not happen in one moment. It happened slowly, the way light changes in a room as the sun moves, almost invisible until suddenly the whole room looks different. She began to see things she had not seen before. She had spent years believing she was the problem, that the reason she was overlooked and mocked and passed over was something written into her body, something physical and visible and fixable if only she could afford to fix it. She had carried that belief so long it had started to feel like fact. But lying in that hospital bed, she began to question it. Marcos had not rejected her because she was not beautiful enough. He had rejected her because he was the kind of man who measured women like distances to be covered. Chloe had not been her protector. She had been someone who looked at Amara's pain and saw an opportunity. The clinic had not been an answer. It had been a predator dressed as a solution. None of it had ever been about her body. The problem had never been her. She pressed her hand flat against her stomach, the same gesture she had made the night before the surgery. And this time, something felt different. Not healed, not perfect, but real. Undeniably, powerfully real. She was still here. She started speaking 3 weeks after she was discharged. First, a short interview with the journalist who had broken the story. Amara sat at a table in a small office, hands folded, voice steady but quiet. She told the truth from the beginning to the end. Then a women's group in her neighborhood invited her to speak. 20 women in a community hall with plastic chairs and a ceiling fan that wobbled as it turned. Amara stood at the front and felt her knees tremble. But she spoke. She told them about the mirror, about Marcus, about the smell in that clinic room and the yellow substance and waking up alone. She told them about Chloe. She did not dress any of it up or make it easier to hear. The women listened without making a sound. More invitations came, a larger hall, a recorded session that was streamed online. Each time Amara was nervous. Each time she spoke anyway. The last event was the largest. She stood on a small raised platform in front of a crowd of women, young ones, older ones, some who had already heard her story, and some who were hearing it for the first time. A camera was recording. Someone had put a simple microphone in her hand. She was wearing a plain dress, nothing to impress anyone. Her hair pulled back, her face unfiltered. She looked at the crowd for a moment before she spoke. She thought about the girl who used to open Instagram first thing in the morning, the girl who stood in front of a cracked mirror and could only see what was missing. The girl who lay on a narrow mattress the night before his surgery and told herself, tomorrow everything changes. It had changed, just not the way she thought it would. She raised the microphone. "I almost died trying to become someone else," she said. The crowd was completely still. "I spent years believing I was not enough, not shaped right, not pretty enough, not the kind of woman people choose." She paused. "I believed it so deeply that I was willing to let a stranger cut me open in a room behind a market, to let danger into my body, just to feel like I finally deserved to be seen." A woman in the front row was crying quietly. "But I survived. And surviving taught me something that all those years of living never did." She looked directly at the camera. "I was already enough. I was enough the whole time. I just could not hear it over all the wrong voices." The silence lasted 3 full seconds. Then the room broke open, not with noise, but with something deeper. Applause that felt like relief. Tears that felt like recognition, women nodding because they knew, because they had stood in front of their own cracked mirrors, because they had heard their own versions of Marcus's words, because they had been offered their own pale blue gates and told, "This is the answer you have been looking for." Amara stood in the middle of all of it, and for the first time in her life, she did not look for the nearest exit. She stayed. She stood in her own story, in her own body, in her own name, and she stayed. She never went back to Mr. Daly's fabric shop. She never replied to Marcus. She never heard from Chloe again, and after a while, the silence from that direction stopped hurting the way it used to. What she did instead was simple. She kept speaking. She kept showing up. She built something new, not from beauty, not from the approval of people who had once looked past her, but from the only thing that had ever truly belonged to her. Her voice, her story, herself.